This is Polish Peter, and you are listening to episode 81 of Immigrant Masters Unite. Have you ever had a little dream when you were a kid that you wanted to be a certain person, you wanted to live your life a certain way, and you wanted to become something that is very important for you at that particular time in life, and at some point you lost that dream? What if that wouldn't have to be the case? On today's episode on Immigrant Masters Unite, I have such a guest who made a declaration when she was 6 years old of who she's going to be and how her life is going to be. And today, as a U.S. citizen here in the United States, she is living that dream. And I want to share their story with you today. So hi, this is Polish Peter, and welcome to another amazing episode of Immigrants Masters Unite, when immigrants unite and transform lives. And on this particular episode, I had Simone Severo, who's originally from Brazil. She's a photographer, book author, educator, wine appreciator, life of the party, idea factory, printmaker, content creator, chocolate rover, cat lady, not necessarily in this order, but she is passionate. And she is an amazing photographer, which was one of her dreams when she was a kid. I highly encourage you guys to listen to this particular episode because we talked about how to make your dream a reality. We talked about how to make that 6-year-old girl's dream a reality. When she shared her story, when I was listening on this episode, where she was in Brazil, the life that she was living when she was being a little girl, how they lived, the possibility, the adversity, that fact that she would be in the United States was impossible. So how do you actually get to the next level? How do you actually get to the making that impossible possible, right? And this particular podcast episode, I think, opened up a lot of eyes for people if you're listening to this, because it is such an impactful, passionate, amazing, story-driven episode that I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So without further ado, here is Simone Severo from Brazil. So, hey, Simone, thank you so much for being on this particular episode. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is really fun.
Awesome. Well, it'll be fun. I think this is going to be a great episode. So listen, tell the listeners, because I had a short conversation with you before this, and I just love your story of when you were a little girl and how you actually ended up here in States. So share with the listener a little bit of that story.
So I am from Brazil. I'm from the very south of Brazil, from a capital, from a city called Porto Alegre, which means happy port. It's a portuary city, about 250 years old. And when I was 6 years old, I had a dream. I literally saw myself inside of a cabin, and I was like laying over the mezzanine looking down. I saw this A-shaped cabin, and I saw the whole living room. And I had this feeling that I was inside my cabin, and that's the part that I remember for my dream. And when I woke up, I literally went to tell my family that I had an announcement to make. When I grew up, I'm going to live in my America. I'm going to speak English, and I'm going to look at the mountains every day. It is going to snow on my birthday. I am not having kids. I'm going to one day find a man who loves me for who I am, and he's going to have a daughter. And I'm going to be a photographer, and I'm going to live in a cabin. And everything is true, but the cabin yet.
So this is, by the way, you shared it with me that you literally went and stood on a chair, right? As a little girl?
Yes, I have the little stool here. I went to the top of a little stool because I was 6, very small. And I went there like you go on a stage on top of something to make my announcement. And they all laugh at me like, yeah, right. It's like, no, I'm that serious. This is what's going to happen when I grow up. I'm going to live in my America. So many, many, many years later, I've been in America for 18 years now.
So how did you actually end up coming here? How did you get here?
So I came actually on vacation in 2002 for a week. And I met my ex-husband. And at the time, he had a daughter as well. And things kind of evolved from there. And we were married many years. And when we separated, I thought this is home. This is the home I always wanted. Never knew it was going to be exactly that way and that it was going to take so many years to come. I was 32 when I came, but I remarried again 3 years ago and became an American in 2011, which was one of the happiest days of my life, to the point that I have 2 birthdays, which I celebrate, my birthday and my American birthday. And yeah, I follow my dream.
Awesome. I love that. So a couple of things that I want you listeners to get from this. How old were you, by the way, when you had that announcement?
6.
6 years old girl had a vision. How many of us as a 6-year-old boy, 7-year-old boy, 6, 7-year-old girl had a vision, right? I mean, if you think about it, a lot of times in school, they'll ask you like, so what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What do you want to do when you grow up? So we have these visions, we have these dreams. And at some point, somebody says, no, now you got to get serious. You can't be dreaming about it. You can't be doing this, right? And for you, right then, you stood up on the little pedestal, the little stoop, and your family, they love you, right? They want you to be happy in life. And one of the things they're like, yeah, right? So you could, in that very moment, say, yeah, I guess I'm not going to happen, or you can keep going, right? And it sounds to me like you chose to like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yes, and for me, the way I see, and I mean, it's funny because today the vision and what probably I heard about so many people when I was still living in Brazil, I remember being, especially as a teenager, being that serious about, I taught myself English. When my father saw that my passion for one day being in America was never going to go away, he gave me a collection of books. He still has a few of those. It was 12 books called English at Home. They had phonetics, had old tapes. And I would listen to that 1 hour and a half a day, every day, from 5:30 to 7. I would listen to that in the end of the day. And no friend could take me out of the house because that was a sacred time for me to study English, because one day I was going to be ready for my country. And I taught myself English for 4 years. And then I went to do some private classes with English. I also had good teachers who encouraged me to keep doing, because it was natural to me. I loved English since very, very little. Nobody in my family had a passport until my mom was 39. Nobody had ever gone to another country. Nobody spoke another language. My parents didn't even have the high school finished by the time I had that dream. Later on they did, but not at that time. So for them, it sounded like, where did she come up with that? Right. You know, it wasn't like I had an uncle who went to vacation and showed me pictures or anything. It came from me. And I believe that was almost like a prophecy. You know, when you have this sign, only that I was just too young to understand that. But I believed, and I built on that vision. So I remember being about 12, 13 years old, that I had American maps that I got, and I put it on my wall. I used to study the capitals and the states and the population and culture. I used to watch all movies with captions or subtitles, so that I could hear and okay, they are shortening that, and pay attention to how you say that. So since very young, I remember watching, anytime that we had movies that had subtitles, I remember choosing that option. But that was always an option that when I was in somebody else's house. We didn't even own a TV until I was 14. 1984, we had a first TV at home, and I was 14. Wow. And it was black and white. It was still black and white.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the TV for me was always somebody else's stranger's life invading my privacy. I like to build on my own vision, and I built on that dream, and I went to the library. Was my best friend. I lived in the library to study American culture, American history, and I ended up going to college for translation, because one day I was going to be in my American.
Yeah, and I love that. Listen, a couple of takeaways from that, what you just shared is, in that moment when you had that vision, I want you guys to pay attention very closely. Everything in her current circumstances at that particular time said, no, it's impossible. I mean, you're in the Brazil, South. There's no way to actually get to America. Nobody's ever been to America. Nobody's, English or anything. Every single thing said no, right?
And we are very poor on top of that. And the country was a dictatorship. We were a dictatorship for longer. Like my father, the first time in my life I voted when we became a democracy, I was 19. My father is 26 years older than me, and he voted for the first time. We voted in the same school where we would vote in person, and he was afraid. He's still afraid today when he's 76.
Wow.
So that culture makes you be so like you don't have that self-belief that that's going to happen. When people say, I'm going to do, not even going to say, go to another country. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and make my own business. People will say like, yeah, that's not a very good idea, or that's not going to happen. It's part of the culture, not because people want to be negative, but because you were surrounded by an entire culture that makes you keep the way it is, so the society keeps the way it is. It's not like this vision culture of America where you have a dream, go fight for it and go get it. You know, it's such a different thing. Yeah. When I go home, I feel like an alien. I go home and I talk about the things here and they laugh, because for them it's so years light from reality that we can actually work and plan and go backwards. Okay, for me to do that, I have to work this many hours. For this many hours, I need this much money. For this much money, what can I do? You know, we deconstruct a dream and we make a dream true in America. Obviously, we have to have confidence and belief and money. It's not like you rained from me and I had the like inheritance money. Right. I came to America and I had nothing. I didn't even work for my first 2 years because I didn't want to do anything illegal ever. I wanted to, like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to build a name for myself and I'm going to do it the right way. So I went for it. It took 32 years to get here. It doesn't matter. I've been here for 18.
I know. Awesome. Love it. So listen, you talked about culture. Because for you, the culture set everything against what you wanted to do. So how did you not buy into the culture?
I think that I was so determined that that was my alternative future, that one day, just because I lived that way, it wasn't going to be that way forever. Mm-hmm. At some point, obviously, you have, it's not like I don't have reality check and I'm living in La La Land. I went to college, I learned English, I learned Spanish, I learned French. I graduated, I did my master's. So while I was doing that, I was working and doing everything like that. But the culture says like, oh, that's not going to happen. For me, it was always like, but it's just a question of time. It's not going to happen right now. It's just not ready yet. And at some point, you're always like, well, maybe it didn't happen yet, but it will. I just don't see exactly how. But I had it so ready. I knew it so right. I know one day when my husband and I retire, we want to have a cabin. I know one day we're going to be looking for the cabin when we downsize. And I'm literally going to be in that mezzanine looking at it, and I'm going to get goosebumps. And I'm going to say, this is the cabin. Yeah. The culture didn't deter me because I knew I wasn't ready. It wasn't like, oh, it's right now. I knew it was a vision of the future. I understood it was a vision of the future. And when today I look back saying, man, but I was 6 when I had that dream and I didn't even come to America until I was 32. When today I look back, I came in the perfect time because 1 year before I came, we didn't even have internet in Brazil. What was I going to do? Write my family a letter? Today, I can see them every day. I wake up every day at 6:30 in the morning and I see my father like I'm seeing you. And we have a great conversation about news, about what's going on in Brazil, how everything is going, how family is going. We talk every day because we have this technology available. 1 year before, I would have to write them a letter. My father didn't even have a phone at the time. Brazil didn't have phones at home like we did. We never had a phone in my life until I was 19.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was living in Poland, I remember when my mom, because she was already here in the United States when I was growing up between my ages 8 and 14, what happened is she would call the city hall, because city hall was the only place in town that had a phone. And she would call, let's say, Sunday morning, like 10 o'clock, and she'd say, hey, this is such and such, and I'm calling for Peter, and I'm calling back at 1 o'clock. So the guy from City Hall would come over to our house, grab us, we would walk over there, and we would sit at 1 o'clock hoping that she's going to actually get through, because sometimes she couldn't even get through. And the conversation was like for a couple minutes because cost per minute was like, $20 or some crazy number. I don't know.
We still have one of the most expensive communication for phones in Brazil. It's like, I remember like when they made the privatization in Brazil, everything became, it was public when it was dictatorship. And when they opened for privatization, the first company privatized I worked for, and it was a telephone company. And I remember that it was crazy that the like Spain, Italy, America, and there was a few other countries that tried to bid for doing that. And I don't remember the numbers, but I remember like today that Italy or Spain, whichever won the bid for that first privatization in the country, won because they bid 10 times higher than America. Wow. And I remember thinking, wow, Americans are pretty good with numbers. How in the world they didn't get this deal? Because it was a good deal or they wouldn't be on it. And then I realized, like, in America, you can call somebody and say, hey, are we up for lunch? Yes, I'll see you at 11:30, right? Yeah, okay, bye, I'll see you then. And we come and we hang up. That would be a 20-minute conversation in Brazil. Our language is more complex and we need 3 times more words. We have to pass the culture. How is your brother? How is everybody in the family? Yeah. That's going to be a 20-minute conversation. So they literally bid based on the culture of Americans can make a 1 or 2 minute conversation to schedule an appointment. Brazilians can't. Any conversation will be 20 minutes or an hour.
Wow. Okay. So gotcha. Yeah. There's different cultural differences. Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit to what you were talking about, the vision, because I think there's something really important that I don't want the audience to kind of overlook. And that is, you had this vision, you were determined. It was pretty clear for you because you literally, as you're showing it, telling us, if you're watching it on the video, you can see how she's laying down and she's putting her hands up and all that kind of stuff. And you mentioned a couple of important things. When there was something that said no, you said but, or that's not happening yet.
But yes.
You never let that actually determine your future. Now, what I want to ask you is, the next thing is, were there any moments where it was tougher when, something happened that was like, oh, how is this going to happen? Like moments of doubt or things that were tough.
There was a few times.
How did you get through it?
So the first time, a couple of things that I think are like, it's my teenager years and the first time I flew. I think those are moments that I remember specifically. When I was a teenager, there was a time that my mom had a cousin whose husband was an engineer, and he came with the company he worked for New York. And I remember writing her a letter, because we didn't even have a phone, to ask her if I could come in together. And of course I couldn't. It was, it was a completely different thing. Mm-hmm. In that moment, I remember feeling very sad. I was probably 14 or 15, because I thought, man, that would be a good chance for me to go. I would be going with family, but I wasn't directly her family. And I understood, because I was 14 or 16, and I understood why. It wasn't like I had no idea, but it was like it broke my heart at the same time. But then I thought, I don't think I'm ready. It was, again, like it was a sadness for the time. And then I don't think I'm ready. I need to grow up and go as an adult. So it was the first time I remember thinking, this is not happening as a high school exchange student program that I'm going to be a year in America. This really is and will be my life one day, that I will be in my America and I will be building that dream. And for that, I'm too young now. So that was one. The second one, I always thought that the first time I would leave Brazil, I was going to come directly to America. And I didn't. I actually, when I graduated from Brazil, I spent a summer in Argentina where I learned Spanish being in a family. And that was the first time I took a plane alone to a place where I had never been before. And I thought, that's not exactly how I imagined that was going to happen. But then 3 months later, I came home with a new language in my luggage. I am completely fluent in Spanish. And I thought, okay, now I'm better prepared, because if the time comes that I go to my America, I will know one more language. And at the time also, I graduated as language in French. I still was fluent. I'm not fluent in French anymore, but I still learn enough of the language to get by. And I thought, okay, now I have this thing. I speak all those languages. I do have my master's, and it's not exactly the time yet, but I am better. I'm getting there. And I never saw what was going to be the opportunity circumstance that was going to bring me to America. I never in a million years imagined that I was going to come to America for a 1-week vacation, and I was going to meet my ex-husband, and then we were going to be married for so many years. And then my mom came actually to visit the first year that she came. That was the year I was divorcing. And she spent visiting like about a month here. And she's like, you're not coming back home, are you? I was like, no, this is home. And she's like, oh yeah, I forgot. You always said so. But now at least I know where you are. I know you're completely belonging to this culture. You had new friends. You have your life. It sounds like you really knew what you always wanted. And besides the cabin, everything else is true. And I was like, yeah, I had that very clear. I just didn't know the details of that. But because I always saw that, it was like, I know it's going to happen. It's okay that you fall on the way. You get up and keep going. It's okay that, it wasn't now yet. You get up and you keep going. I just knew it was going to be. Yeah. And it's been a difficult journey. Yes, nothing comes like, I saw a sentence the other day that says, there is no stairs how to go? There's no stairways to success. No, there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs.
Right.
And it just resonated with me.
Yeah.
It's a little longer, but it's so worth it. It's not just the end. It's the journey.
Yeah. I love that.
It makes you a better prepared person.
Yeah. And you got to enjoy the journey, because if you don't enjoy the journey at some level, it's going to be very tough for you to get there. So sounds to me, based on what you just said, is that what you were really passionate about, attached to and focused on, is the what. The what do I want my life to look like, and why do I want it? But the how am I actually going to get there? You didn't really were attached to it, because if you were so attached to the how, you would never actually be here.
No, because it wasn't like a business plan that, the numbers, this month you do this month you do that. It was like a vision. A vision was much bigger than any plan I could have done. And everything that happened on the way was one step more to make me stronger, to go through the journey I needed to do so that I could be here one day and realize that. Also, there's some other little stories about in between. I always knew I was going to be a photographer, like I told you.
Right.
And I don't know if you have a question or if you want to go me to.
Yeah, I was going to go on that. That was my next question for you, because one is you had a dream of being a photographer, and now you are a photographer. And I saw your pictures, and my jaw was on the floor because they are unbelievable. And I sent the one behind you, I think, is one of those pictures, right? The ballerina.
Yes, that's one. I just got a bronze with this image actually in an international competition, so that was fun.
Wow, that's awesome. So how you end up actually living and doing for job, what you always wanted to do, the passion, right?
So my story with photography starts with my oldest memory. When I was younger, we didn't have a camera until I was my late teenager years, and it was one of those disposable that everybody had in the 80s. But when I was 3 years old, I enjoyed very vividly visiting my grandpa. I only had one. So every time I would go to his house, he had this old chest where grandmas and grandpas used to put the linens and things like that on the bottom of the bed. Mm-hmm. And when we would open, there was no linens there. There was thousands of black and white photographs. My grandpa had a camera. He was like a handyman, and he had a camera. So wherever he would go, he would take pictures. But even though I would go visit him and he had the pictures, he didn't have them in albums. He had them loose on that box, grab one. It was all that. And I would love to go there. My oldest memory, I'm with him grabbing those pictures and asking, who is this person? And he was a very good note taker. So you would turn the picture, and on the back would say, let's just say, pretend the names were João, Maria, José, anniversario, birthday of this and this and this on this year. So he always would document that. Mm-hmm. And I loved going there and seeing other pictures. And I remember him always had a camera on his left pocket on his white button shirt. And it was a tiny little camera. Today I had a replica of a camera that was not his, but one that was their model just for fun. Mm-hmm. He always had it, and he would just pull from his pocket at any moment and he would take a picture. And I loved, because when he came, we had memories because we didn't have a camera. And I loved every time that we'd get together to be able to see those pictures. And I remember from 3 years old that I wanted to be a photographer. And I remember them being 4 years old and this guy knocking in our door and my mom getting me and my sister dressed. And we grew up with 2 pictures bigger than the one I have behind me, 2 vertical pictures behind the couch. And every time we would open the door, I would look at those images on the wall. And I remember thinking, we are important because we are on the wall. And one day I'm going to do this for somebody. And it never went away. That feeling that because I was right there, I belonged there, and that was important. And the feeling of belonging, the confidence that I was bigger than real life on the wall, it stayed with me. And I thought that everybody deserved it. And then it was also that feeling of magic. I don't know if you ever studied photography, but when in the film time, you literally would put a piece of paper in the liquid. There was a bunch of combination of chemicals. And magic, all of a sudden, the image would come to the paper. For me, photography is much beyond just memories that will be amazing 100 years from now. It's literally magic. It's the only art that you get something intangible. You work with a raw material that you cannot touch. Because a painter have the paint and the canvas and the brushes. I have light. Right. I can't put light in a box and say I'm going to use it tomorrow. I can't let's hold this light for doing a little later. Light is transient. If I'm using the sun, it goes down, it's done, I don't have it. Or I control it when I have my own, equipment with lighting. So I get the intangible and deliver in a tangible product for my clients. And for me, that is the ultimate magic.
That is amazing. I mean, I just love how you described it because there's so much passion. I don't know if you guys heard that, but there's so much passion behind
magic.
that. Yeah, it is. And it's magic.
It is magic.
It is magic. I'll say. So listen, what would you tell somebody that would say to you, well, listen, it's easy for you to say because you can, I don't know if you fell into it, but doing stuff that you're passionate about doesn't make money. You got to work hard, especially immigrants, right? Got to work hard, got to work hard, got to work hard.
It didn't come overnight. I came to America 18 years ago. I always celebrate in Thanksgiving. I celebrate my anniversary in America. So I have many anniversaries because that's when I came. I came a week before Thanksgiving in 2002. But I think that you have to think of it as your life. You don't expect to wake up today and tomorrow be running. You have to crawl first, and then you have to walk, and then you have to fall, and then you got to run. So it's kind of like baby steps. So I never left the photography go away. I started doing photography when I was in Brazil. But I came first to America, and in my first 2 years, I couldn't even work. I didn't have a permission. So I had to wait my permit to come. So then I could have a first job. So I thought in my first job in America, I work as a picture framer. Anything that I would today can produce and print, I would frame. So I learned the end product of it, how to get complementary mats and work with the colors. And I learned a new skill that I didn't have in my first job in America so that I could have that done. And then I understand from the creation to the delivery and hanging on the wall, how everything is done. And through the years, I kept working on my craft. My first 2 years in America, I was, like I said, I lived an online life. I was in every forum of photography that we had in the beginning of digital life in America in photography, participating, posting images, having questions until I turned digital, which was right in the beginning of that transition. Within my first 2 years in America, I became digital. And then I was participating in online forums where we could actually take digital pictures and get critiques. Then I was the one critiquing. And then finally, I didn't really open my business as a business until 2016 when I wrote my book. And then I was like, okay, now it's been 4 years. And I've been doing this with my style changed so much through these years because I grew. I put myself in all kinds of situations. So my skill would grow. And with your expertise comes a confidence that fast can never do. Only time can teach. And I felt like everything actually was never late. Everything was on the right time. It just takes time.
Takes time, yeah. I love that. That's very awesome. So sounds to me like you had to step out of a comfort zone a lot.
I did.
That's one, yeah. Right. And
two. So one of the things I did is in 2015, 1 year before I officially opened my business, I decided to put myself on a big personal growth and professional growth. I worked on a personal project called A Portrait a Day, where every single day of the year I went out of the house and I found a different person for me to photograph, which meant I already love studio and I always knew studio was my love language. I feel like I have complete control of the lighting. I make my clients in complete comfortable and feeling pampered and special. I make that moment really good. But because I know that so well, I wanted to be able to say, but I can go anywhere and do that as well. So I put myself out of my comfort zone, going into people's places, gyms, houses, business, strangers, middle of the street, you name it, I've done it. I would approach strangers every single day of the year, and I would just ask them to be participating in my project. I would ask every single person to sign a release because eventually maybe I would write a book, which I ended by doing. And I documented that. Every day I would write down name of the person, what did we talked about it, what was the 3 things that made them, anything that would make me engage with them. And I documented my lighting, the technical part, the conversation, and then I have the setup of how that was done, and then I have the final picture. So I did that through 365 days in 2015. I never missed a day.
Wow.
And some days I did more than 2 people because I had to pick which one was going to be for the project. And then in 2016, I was like, I have all these pictures and all these stories. I want to make that into something bigger than me. So I wrote a book and then I published the book. So that was the year that I actually started my business officially, is when I launched the book. And that really made me like, okay, you name it, like I have 15 minutes to be in this dark corner room with 5 people. How can we do it? It's like, oh, I've done that. I know how to do that. Because there were so many crazy situations that I literally feel like that is my library of lighting. It's like I literally scan my brain. I was like, oh, I've done that before. It's my database.
I love that. There's talk about dedication. I mean, if you're just listening and you're thinking about 365 days and doing it every single day.
Yeah, that was about 1,500 hours of my life.
Wow. That's when you become a master too. I mean, in your trade. And I can see in your pictures, like, I don't know if you could make me look good, like you make the other people look good, but.
Is that a challenge? Hey, I'm up for a challenge.
See, look at her. That is a challenge because I don't know about me. Like, make me look. I get on a picture and I'm like, deer in the headlights sometimes. So
I like funny things. I always joke that the reason why people always say that they look like this is because of yearbook pictures in America. Because people think that you can get the likeliness of a person is just a button in a second, but it's more than that. In some of the Indian tribes of Brazil, there is this belief that they don't like their picture taken because you're stealing their soul. You probably heard that story before.
No, I have not.
There is a common belief in many different tribes in different cultures because there is actually an exchange in between the photographer and the subject that when you don't want your picture taken, it's like you look like a deer in a like a deer in the headlight, or you look like you're mean, or it's like, that kind of in-between expressions. Because a good photographer has a collaboration with the person. The person wants to be there. And when you get that guard down, you are giving something of you so that I can actually capture the real you. That's when people usually say, oh, I love that picture. It's real me. Yeah. Because you actually open up, got your guard down. I got the right lighting, the good posing, your interaction with me. You're wanting to be in that picture. And all of a sudden you like it because it's you. It's not like that person that's like, where do I look?
I get it. I love that because, and this is a good lesson for business too, because when you're dealing with clients, right? If you're a consultant or a coach or doing any kind of a service-based business, it's more than just that thing that you're providing. It's about the people. You want to get to know them. You want to get into their lives a little bit, right? And sounds to me, this is because when someone can bring life through a picture, I think that is such an amazing thing. And I feel like you can totally do this because there's emotion behind it, right?
Yes, and you have the person's collaboration too. So I always tell my clients, some people, sometimes I have inquiries of people saying, hey, I just want a quick headshot. I'm the straight on to tell them there's absolutely nothing quick about a great headshot.
Yeah.
If you want a quick headshot, is not a great headshot. It could be a likeliness of I recognize you, but it's not something remarkable that people will remember you for. It's like, do you think that the famous image of Winston Churchill was a quick headshot from the point of view of that being purposeful? It was quick in the moment. Like I read the story behind that picture. It was like photographer probably had 5 minutes with Churchill. But for the photographer, everything was ready. He had a plan. He knew what he was going to do and to say to get that expression. And that was the famous image that made Churchill like this, that everybody knows. That made him look like the leader that he was at the time that he was. It wasn't because it was a quick headshot. There's a plan and a collaboration in a way. Other than that, you'll never get that.
Wow, I love that story. I didn't know that. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, awesome. So my next question for you is, why do you do all that stuff that you do? What's the reason? Why you do this?
So let me go one step, like talking about, I photograph men and women, but I do photograph more women than men. And I believe that 100 years from now, what we do as photographers is important. Because before photography existed, people would only see paintings that somehow were interpreted by the painter. Photography, at the point that was created and accepted as art, had and still has a big controversy about if it's still art. Until today, my father still thinks that I should be an artist. And I laugh with him like, I am an artist. Yeah. My medium is photography. But in the old times, when you had art so much longer, ceramics, painting, and all the other arts are much older than photography. And when photography is seen just as a frozen moment in time, it's not just documentary photography. It's important because there is also interpretation, how somebody's going to be dressed, how somebody's going to be allowing me to photograph them, the lighting that is going to be used in that person, the posing that is going to be in the person, what she's going to be wearing. All of that is going to tell something about that person. So it's not like I'm creating in a vacuum of nothing. I have a collaboration and a relationship with my clients to know what they want and how they want to be seen. So that is the realistic. I need personal branding headshots for my brand because I'm a coach. And that is like, I always dreamed of looking like a princess in this beautiful dress, looking myself in the mirror. Those are two different scenarios. And in each one, we spent quite a good amount of time together deciding what is going to be taken and how that is going to be created.
Yeah.
And because of that, 100 years from now, I have a kick thinking like photography is bigger than me. 100 years from now, your great-great-grandchild is going to find a box with an album of the images that I created, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, look at my great-great-grandpa. And that's all they are going to have from them. Whatever they own will be gone, moved, broken, lost. But those photos, the family will keep. And that's the only thing that will go with them through the generations. The day we are gone, if you collect old bottles, little spoons, nobody cares. Everybody is like, where is the picture of my mother? Why don't we have pictures of my mother? Oh, yeah, because she was always the one taking the picture. She's never in the pictures. So when I decided that I wanted to be a photographer, I wanted to create an oasis. So my clients come to my studio and they spend 5-6 hours with me on a glamour shot, or in a headshot, they spend 2 to 3 hours with me because we are creating a high quality headshot or glamour session. We are creating beautiful things. And it is like a slice where time stops for them, just like photography is a frozen moment. They come in and they will have that for the rest of their lives. Nobody can take that away from them. It's something beyond me. I create something beautiful because I love art. I create something meaningful because it's important to my clients. And I create something that is timeless because 100 years from now, we'll be having more value than it has today.
That is awesome. That's love it. Okay. So listen, I want to respect your time, the time of the listeners. So I want to go into my Polish Peter's final round.
Absolutely.
My first question is, what is the book that you would recommend, like had an impact on you outside? I mean, you can share your book as well, but outside of that.
Well, people can always go and find my book with my name and last name in the internet. My book is A Portrait a Day. They can find it on Amazon. But the book that I think that changed my business, talking like I'm assuming most of your people are also immigrants who are also entrepreneurs and people who have this vision in life. I think that the book that changed my business is called Profit First.
Yep.
It is a great book. It teaches you how to manage your money and how you should think so that you can really operate your business in a very realistic way. It's not like, oh yeah, I have all that money, let me go spend it. No. It doesn't belong to you yet. You have to know what's operational. You have to know what's for the profit and growth of your business, what's yours and what's Mr. Government's. So that was a great one. It's called Profit First. I think it's Mike McLovick's or something like that. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's got a Polish last name. Yeah. That's actually how you said it in Polish, Mihalowicz.
So Profit First was one of the books that I really, really loved. And I think that it's like if business want to have a head, I actually started doing that system in 2019 and it worked really good for me. So that would be my book recommendation.
Awesome. Very love it. Okay. One last piece of advice, because we shared a lot on this podcast about the vision, about actually going, working it, right? Stepping out of the comfort zone, going after your vision, not letting the naysayers drag you down and all that kind of stuff. One last piece of advice for immigrant listeners.
I think that when you live in America, if you made it through here and you have a dream, there is no better land to make your dreams come true. If you believe it, really like surround yourself with people who also believe it. I think that the biggest challenge entrepreneurs have is that sometimes it could be very lonely. But if you find your community of other photographers or other entrepreneurs or a club of something that you love to do when you need some time off from your business, from your dream, from your life, surround yourself with people that can give you that like, oh, I feel so energized to be with them. I can keep going. I'm going to make my dream come true because this is the land of opportunity. And if we can make it here, we can show our kids' generation that it's, yes, it is hard work, but isn't life worth it?
I love that. I think this is a great piece of advice. Yeah. Because this is what I'm doing right now, even for myself. I got 3 kids, and now they're going to have their own kids. And I was blessed to be able to be here, and I still believe to this day. And I made a post a couple of weeks ago on the internet, on Facebook.
And also, we live like, you came from Poland, I came from Brazil. We live in a land with freedoms that we didn't have, right? You didn't, and I didn't either.
Yeah, I was in a communist country growing up.
Dictatorship until I was 19. I remember the Constitution in Brazil was written in 88. And I remember my family being afraid when I wanted to talk about politics out of my door. They would say, no, you do not express yourself out of this door. If somebody say, what do you think about da-da-da? You would say, I don't have an opinion, because it was the safe answer. Yeah. And here we can express ourselves. We still have those freedoms. It's an amazing country.
It is. I totally believe it. It's a land of opportunity. All right. So tell me one thing about Brazil that we maybe don't know about. Like maybe it's a food or a custom or a saying or anything.
Okay. So one thing I would say, one good thing I would say about Brazil is that I think we have an amazing culinary experience when you go to Brazil. We are divided in so many states, just like in America, there's 27 states, and each state has a different kind of food. And when you go to places like restaurants, it's like a feast. You have so many influences of other places too that was blended with local. If you ever want to feel like, I want to try what Brazilian food is, I think what is the richness of the Brazilian culture is when you go to a restaurant and try all the kinds of food experience that end up by being Brazilian food today.
Okay, what's your favorite Brazilian food?
My favorite Brazilian food is feijoada. It's a dish that is a national dish made with black beans and a lot of pork parts. And it takes like a good 1 to 2 to 3 days to be prepared.
3 days?
Yes, you soak beans on a Friday. You cook beans on Saturday all day. Then you're going to marinate pork. You're going to put that pork to cook inside the beans. You're going to let it in the refrigerator, take all the fat part out so it doesn't kill your liver. And then you're going to cook again the next day and you're going to serve it over dinner. It's phenomenal.
On Sunday. I love that. Sunday. Very cool. So listen, how if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how could they reach you? Where would they go? So they go to my website, www.simonevision.com. It's SIMONE, vision like your eye.com. And I have my phone, my email, my website, my portfolio, all over there. They even have a form if they want to send me a message. Awesome. I love it. And I don't know if you're taking any new photography clients, but from what I'm hearing from you, I mean, you would be amazing to, get somebody's looking for photography. I think you would be an amazing person to be able to do that. So awesome. I love it. Thank you very much. Simone, I am so grateful that I was able to connect with you. Someone recommended me over to you, Amy, I think it was. And yes. I'm so grateful for the fact that she did it because your spirit is unbelievable. You're so much full of fun, passion, love, and just you radiate like an amazing, there's something about you. I can't even pinpoint that, I don't think, but there's something about you. I tell people, like, if I could tell myself one word, what would be the one word that would define me? And that would be enthusiastic. That is true. You are that. Yeah, that's very cool. And I'm think our paths are going to cross again. I don't think this is the end of it. And I'm just so grateful I was able to talk to you here on this podcast. For all the people who are listening on this podcast, thank you so much for coming in and listening, because guess what? Without you, I wouldn't be able to have this podcast and share these stories, these amazing stories like Simone here. Leave me a review on iTunes or wherever, and share this podcast with somebody if you guys are thinking it's helpful. I'm going to put a link on my website. Awesome. Thank you. And I will share that with you when you are going to be on live. I'm going to send you the episode so you can share it with your friends. For all of you listeners, thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you, Peter. And, thank you. Have a very blessed day. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you too. See you guys on the next episode.